Commander Elias Cade had seen many strange things in his career, but nothing prepared him for the sight of Zephyria. The floating city hovered above a swirling gas giant, its towers reaching skyward like crystal spires, reflecting the planet's golden and violet clouds. Light shimmered along the transparent walkways, and strange creatures glided between the platforms, their forms shifting and shimmering as if they were made of liquid light. Elias felt a shiver of awe. This was the seat of the Xylarian Empire, a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity, and he had been chosen to represent Earth. He stepped off the transport vessel, feeling the gentle hum beneath his feet as the city's anti-gravity field adjusted to his weight. The air smelled faintly sweet, like blooming flowers, and yet carried the tang of something metallic. He took in the city around him, the gardens floating in mid-air, connected by translucent bridges, and the towers spiraling upward like elegant fingers. It was breathtaking. Every step he took made him more aware of how small humanity seemed in the grand scheme of the universe. A figure approached him, tall, regal, with flowing robes that shimmered in the light. Her skin glowed faintly in soft hues of gold and violet, and her eyes were the color of polished emeralds. Commander Elias recognized immediately that this was no ordinary being. This was Empress Lysera, ruler of the Xylarian Empire. "Welcome, Commander Cade," she said, her voice calm but resonant, carrying a melodic quality that made the words feel both gentle and powerful. "I have been expecting you." Elias bowed respectfully. "It is an honor to be here, Your Majesty. I hope humanity can be a worthy partner in the peace you seek." The Empress's eyes softened slightly, but a shadow of sorrow passed across her face. "Peace is fragile, Commander, especially in times when many wish to use others as pawns for their ambitions." Elias followed her into the palace, a structure that seemed to float above the clouds themselves. The corridors were lined with crystals that pulsed faintly with light, and the walls seemed to shift ever so slightly, creating patterns that were both calming and unsettling. He could hear the faint hum of energy flowing through the palace, a sound that was not mechanical but alive, almost as if the building itself was conscious. They entered a grand chamber, vast and open, with a view of the gas giant below. In the center stood another figure, smaller, but no less striking. Princess Saren, the Empress's daughter, moved gracefully across the floor, her eyes wide and curious. She had a presence that was difficult to ignore, a quiet confidence that suggested intelligence and courage. She watched Elias carefully, as though measuring his soul. The Empress stepped closer to Elias, her expression solemn. "Commander Cade, I must ask you a question that is both personal and political. It is not easy for me to ask, but it is necessary for the future of our people, and perhaps yours as well." Elias felt a tightening in his chest. He had been trained to navigate difficult negotiations, but there was something in her voice that made him pause. He nodded carefully, waiting for her to continue. She took a deep breath, and her eyes filled with a glimmer of tears. "Do you want my daughter?" The words hung in the air like a delicate crystal, fragile and heavy at the same time. Elias blinked, caught off guard. This was not merely a question about diplomacy or political alliances. The weight behind her eyes suggested it was about trust, responsibility, and choices that would shape the future. I am honored by your question, Your Majesty," he began carefully, choosing his words. "But I must understand. This is more than a simple alliance, isn't it?" The Empress nodded, her hand brushing lightly against the air as if to steady herself. "Yes, it is not only about politics. It is about the bond we may forge between our civilizations, and about your willingness to protect what is precious, not just to me, but to the galaxy itself." Elias looked at Princess Saren again. She seemed both wary and curious, and there was a spark in her eyes, a quiet defiance that suggested she would not be treated as a pawn without a voice. He realized that the question before him was not just about choosing to accept a political arrangement. It was about understanding responsibility, honor, and the consequences of his choices. The Empress led him through the palace, explaining the complexities of Xylarian society. Unlike human civilizations, their world was ruled not by force alone, but by careful balance and respect for knowledge, wisdom, and the rare gifts of those born with special abilities. Every action, every decision had consequences that could ripple across the stars. "You see, Commander," she said softly, "our empire has enemies who wish to manipulate or destroy what we hold dear. My daughter is not just a princess. She is a symbol of our people's hope and future. Her safety is paramount, and her choices are her own. Yet the alliances she enters will shape the fate of many." Elias nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. He had dealt with diplomacy and war, with treaties and agreements, but never had he been placed in a position where a single decision could affect not just one civilization, but two entire species. As they walked, Elias saw Saren moving among the palace gardens, observing the alien flora and fauna. She stopped to examine a flower that glowed with soft light, its petals almost transparent. When she noticed Elias watching, she smiled faintly, and there was a sense of curiosity in her eyes, as if she wanted to know whether he was worthy of trust. The Empress paused at the edge of the balcony overlooking the city. "Commander, know this. Whatever your answer, it must come from understanding, not obligation. Do not speak simply to please me, for that could lead to consequences neither of us wish to see." Elias swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of the moment. He understood that this was not about him alone. It was about humanity, about the fragile trust being offered by a civilization far older and wiser. He felt the pulse of the city beneath his feet, the hum of energy that connected everything, and realized that every choice here would echo across time and space. For hours, they walked through the palace, speaking of philosophy, science, and the shared desire for peace. Elias was struck by the depth of the Xylarians' understanding and the delicate balance they maintained in their society. Every word seemed measured, every gesture purposeful, yet the Empress's question lingered, unspoken, but ever-present. As night fell over Zephyria, the floating city illuminated the gas giant below in a dance of golden and violet light. Elias stood on the balcony, looking at the stars above, thinking about the responsibility that lay before him. He understood that this was not merely about politics. It was about courage, honor, and the willingness to do what was right, even when the path was uncertain. Princess Saren joined him silently, her eyes reflecting the swirling light of the gas giant. "Do you understand why this is difficult?" she asked softly. Elias nodded. "I do. It is not just a question of accepting an alliance. It is about understanding responsibility, trust, and the consequences of our actions. I must think carefully." She smiled faintly, a mixture of amusement and respect. "Good. Think carefully. We are not just symbols, Commander. We are individuals, and our choices matter." The Empress watched from the doorway, her eyes glistening with tears that she refused to shed fully. She understood that the answer Elias would give could shape the future of her daughter, her empire, and humanity's place in the stars. Yet she also knew that the decision had to come from his heart and mind, not from fear or obligation. Elias felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, yet he also felt a spark of hope. In this moment, he realized that heroism was not about power or conquest. It was about making the right choice when the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. And so, under the alien stars of Zephyria, With the Empress's question lingering like a delicate flame, Elias began the journey of understanding, responsibility, and the courage required to face a choice that could change everything. The morning sun rose over Zephyria, spilling soft violet and gold light across the floating gardens. Commander Elias Cade awoke in the guest quarters of the Empress's palace, the view of the gas giant below leaving him speechless for a moment. The sheer beauty of the city, its elegance and scale, reminded him of how fragile humanity was in the larger universe. Yet here he was, a human, standing on a world far beyond Earth's reach, tasked with choices that could shape the future of two civilizations. Breakfast was served in a room of glass and light, where the walls themselves seemed to shimmer as if alive. The Empress joined him, along with Princess Saren, whose curiosity about Earth and humanity had not waned since their meeting the previous evening. Saren's presence was calm, yet commanding, a subtle reminder that she was not merely royalty, but a being who carried the weight of her people's expectations. "You have been thinking, I assume," the Empress said gently, her voice still carrying the weight of unspoken sorrow from the previous night. Elias nodded, choosing his words carefully. "Yes, Your Majesty, I have considered the question you asked. But I must also understand your daughter, her desires, and the dangers that may surround this choice." The Empress smiled faintly, as if pleased by his honesty. "Very wise. And you are correct. Saren's role is not just a matter of politics. She is her own person, capable of making decisions, but she cannot ignore the responsibilities her birth brings. Come, Commander, let me show you more of Zephyria. Perhaps seeing her world will help you understand what is at stake." They walked through the palace corridors, stepping into an open terrace that overlooked a floating garden. Strange plants floated gently in the air, their roots suspended and their leaves glowing with soft light. Birds of colors Elias had never imagined glided between the flowers, and the air was alive with the subtle hum of energy that flowed through the city. Saren stepped forward, touching one of the floating plants. "These gardens are not merely for beauty," she said. "They are alive in ways your species might find difficult to understand. Each plant, each creature, contributes to the balance of energy in Zephyria. If we disturb it, even slightly, the city itself feels the effect." Elias knelt to observe a small plant that seemed to pulse with light. "It's incredible. It's like the entire city breathes." Saren smiled faintly. "Yes, and that is how life here works. Power is not taken. It is understood, respected, and balanced. That is the lesson the Empress hopes you will learn." They walked in silence for a while, the weight of unspoken words lingering. Elias understood that the Empress was testing him, not just his intellect, but his judgment, his sense of honor, and his capacity to act wisely in a world where mistakes could cost more than lives. They could cost civilizations. "You will meet with our council today," the Empress said, her voice quiet but firm. "They will question you, test your diplomacy, and your understanding of interstellar politics. They do not wish to see your weakness, but to ensure that humanity is ready for the challenges that come with an alliance." Elias nodded. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." As they walked to the council chambers, Saren stayed slightly behind, watching him with a keen eye. "You know," she said softly, "most humans would be intimidated here, overwhelmed by the beauty and the complexity of this place. But you seem different. You see beyond the spectacle." Elias glanced at her, surprised by her words. "I am honored you think so, but this is not just beauty. It is responsibility, and responsibility is heavy." She smiled faintly. "Yes, that is why my mother's question is not simple. It is not about politics alone. It is about who you are, and whether you understand the consequences of choices that affect others." When they reached the council chambers, Elias found himself surrounded by Xylarians of all shapes and sizes, some appearing almost human, others more alien, their bodies flowing with light or shifting forms that seemed impossible to replicate. The council's leader, an older Xylarian with silver streaks of light flowing through her skin, studied him with piercing eyes. "Commander Cade," she said, her voice firm, "you come before us not merely as an envoy, but as a representative of humanity's values, its wisdom, and its courage. Tell us, why should we trust your people with an alliance that could change the balance of power in the galaxy?" Elias straightened, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. "You should trust humanity not because we are perfect, but because we have the capacity to learn, to grow, and to make choices guided by conscience and courage. We are not without fault, but we are capable of understanding the consequences of our actions, and we strive to act in the interests of others, not just ourselves." The council members exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. One elder spoke, her voice like the hum of distant stars. "And yet, Commander, your species is young. You have not endured the tests of time like we have. How do you know you will not falter when faced with the responsibilities we ask of you?" Elias met her gaze steadily. "We may be young, but our curiosity, courage, and determination are our strength. We may falter, but we learn quickly. And we have leaders willing to face the unknown with honesty and integrity. That is how humanity grows, and that is why we can be trusted to walk alongside the Xylarians, not beneath them." The council remained silent for a moment, considering his words. Finally, the leader inclined her head. "Your words are honest. We will observe your actions as well, for actions often reveal more than words ever could." After the council meeting, Elias was escorted to the city's observation platforms. Below, Zephyria's energy flow was visible, currents of light moving through the city like veins, connecting everything in a delicate network. He realized that the council was right. Words alone would not earn trust. He would need to show wisdom, courage, and understanding in the days to come. As they walked, Saren spoke quietly. "There are those who would use my mother, my position, to further their own power. You must understand that any choice you make regarding me will not be simple. There are dangers that do not reveal themselves immediately." Elias looked at her, recognizing the weight of her words. "I understand, and I will not make decisions lightly. Your safety and the future of your people will always be my priority." Saren smiled faintly, a spark of hope in her eyes. "Good. I can see you are not like others who come here seeking to impress. You are different. Perhaps that is why my mother asked you her question. Perhaps she hoped someone would understand the importance of choice, of responsibility, without being blinded by power." That evening, the palace erupted in celebration. A festival of light and music filled the terraces. With citizens of Zephyria gliding through the gardens, their laughter harmonizing with the soft hum of energy in the city. Elias watched, feeling a sense of wonder. Despite the political tension, despite the weight of responsibility, life in Zephyria was vibrant, resilient, and beautiful. He saw Princess Saren moving among the crowd, interacting with her people, her eyes bright with curiosity and laughter. He realized that her life, though framed by duty and expectation, was filled with vitality and intelligence. She was not a pawn. She was a living, breathing symbol of hope, courage, and choice. Later, alone on a balcony, Elias contemplated the Empress's question once more. The city stretched below him, a network of life and energy, a symbol of civilization far beyond anything humanity had yet achieved. The gas giant glowed softly in the distance, reflecting the city's lights like a mirror of colors. He understood that any decision he made would have consequences reaching far beyond this city, beyond this planet, and perhaps even beyond the stars. Saren joined him again, quiet but present. "Do you know what it means to carry someone else's trust?" she asked softly. Elias nodded. "Yes, and I know it is a responsibility I do not take lightly. I will think carefully, and I will act with honor." She smiled faintly, a gesture that carried both challenge and respect. "That is all anyone can ask of you." As night settled over Zephyria, Elias felt the weight of his duty settle on his shoulders, but he also felt a spark of hope. The question was not yet answered, but he understood that the answer would not come from pressure, expectation, or fear. It would come from understanding, respect, and the courage to act wisely in the face of uncertainty. And as he watched the lights of the city glow beneath the alien stars, he realized that the journey had only just begun. The choices he made in the coming days would define not just the alliance between Earth and Zephyria, but the very nature of trust, courage, and heroism across the stars. Days passed in Zephyria, each filled with lessons, observations, and the subtle weight of the Empress's question lingering in Elias Cade's mind. He walked through the floating gardens with Princess Saren, observing the strange bioluminescent plants and the creatures that glided gracefully in the air. She moved with quiet confidence, her eyes alert to every detail of the city, every pulse of energy that flowed through it. "You understand why my mother asked you the question, don't you?" Saren said softly, her gaze following the currents of light flowing beneath their feet. Elias nodded. "Yes. It is not merely about a political alliance. It is about trust, responsibility, and understanding the consequences of one's actions. And I know that one wrong choice could change everything for your people, and mine." Saren smiled faintly. "Good. Many humans would answer without thinking, or accept without understanding. But my mother needs someone who comprehends what it means to be responsible." Before Elias could respond, a sudden alarm echoed through the city. The soft hum of Zephyria's energy shifted, rippling through the gardens and the palace corridors like a warning. Saren's eyes widened slightly, and Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. "They are here," she whispered. "The extremists. They seek to control my mother, and by extension, me." Elias's training took over. He moved swiftly, following Saren through the corridors of the palace. Alarms flashed along the walls, and the normally calm energy of Zephyria crackled with tension. Outside, in the city's skies, dark shapes moved like shadows, their forms unfamiliar and menacing. The Empress's guards, elegant beings whose bodies shimmered with light, engaged the attackers immediately. Elias joined them, coordinating with their movements, using both human tactics and adapting to the alien technology around him. The palace was under siege, and every moment counted. Saren guided him to a secure chamber, her own abilities beginning to manifest. She lifted her hands, and energy flowed around her in streams of light that danced with precision and power. Elias watched in awe as she controlled the currents of energy within the palace, creating barriers and shields that protected the vulnerable areas. "They will not get through while I am here," she said calmly, her eyes focused. "But we must act carefully. Any misstep could destroy the city or harm innocents." Elias nodded. "Then let us work together." They moved through the palace side by side. Elias coordinated with the Xylarian Guardians, while Saren used her rare abilities to redirect energy, creating pathways and shields that allowed civilians to escape and guards to counter the attackers. The extremists, though strong and well-prepared, had underestimated the synergy between human tactics and Xylarian power. During the battle, Elias observed the attackers more closely. They were not merely seeking political control, they were determined to seize Saren, believing that controlling her meant controlling the entire empire. He realized that the stakes were far higher than he had imagined. If the extremists succeeded, it could destabilize not only Zephyria, but the balance of power across nearby star systems. Saren led him to a central control chamber where the energy flows of the city converged. Here, she could amplify her abilities and influence the battle more effectively. Elias stood by her side, ready to defend and coordinate. "You have to trust me," she said, her eyes meeting his. "I can control the flows, but I cannot do it alone." Elias nodded. "I trust you, Saren. Let's protect your people together." Together, they unleashed a coordinated defense. Saren manipulated the energy currents, creating barriers and redirecting attacks, while Elias directed the Guardians to counter enemy movements. The extremists found themselves trapped in a web of light and strategy, their plans unraveling with every move. Amidst the chaos, Elias noticed a group of attackers attempting to flank the city, targeting civilians. He acted immediately, using a combination of tactical maneuvers and improvised weaponry to intercept them. Saren's energy shields protected him from harm, and her precise control allowed him to turn the tide of that skirmish. The battle reached its climax when the extremists attempted a direct assault on the central palace chamber. Saren focused her power, creating a dome of energy that expanded outward, pushing the attackers back while keeping the palace safe. Elias coordinated the Guardians, ensuring that every entry point was secured and every civilian evacuated. Finally, the extremists retreated, realizing that their plan had failed. The palace was intact, the citizens were safe, and the city's energy flows had returned to normal. Elias and Saren stood together, breathing heavily but unbroken. The Empress arrived soon after, her presence calm but commanding. Her eyes were filled with tears, not of fear, but of relief. She approached Elias, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. "You see now why my question was so important," she said. "It is not simply about alliances or power. It is about courage, judgment, and the ability to act when everything is uncertain. You have proven yourself today, not just as a human or a commander, but as someone who understands responsibility." Elias bowed respectfully. "I only did what I had to do, Your Majesty. Together with Saren, we protected your people. That is all that matters." Saren looked at him with a mixture of respect and admiration. "You were not just brave, Elias. You understood what needed to be done, and you acted without hesitation. That is rare, even among the Xylarians." The Empress's gaze softened, and she reached out, placing a hand lightly on Saren's shoulder. "You have shown us that alliances are not built on fear or obligation, but on trust, courage, and understanding. And now, Commander Cade, you understand the depth of what I asked. The choice I offered is not simple. It is not about taking or giving. It is about knowing when to protect, when to guide, and when to allow others to choose their own path." Elias felt the weight of her words settle over him. He had faced danger, coordinated a defense, and witnessed the rare abilities of Princess Saren firsthand. He understood now that the Empress's question was never about the superficial aspects of political marriage or alliances. It was about trust, honor, and the capacity to act wisely under pressure. Saren spoke quietly, her voice carrying the weight of her own experience. "My mother's question was never about who I would be given to. It was about understanding who can be trusted when the future of many is at stake. Today, you have shown that you are capable of that understanding." Elias looked at her, realizing that their partnership had grown beyond simple diplomacy. They had worked together, relying on each other's strengths, and the bond formed in the heat of battle had created a mutual respect that neither of them had expected. The Empress approached once more, her eyes filled with tears that she could no longer hide. "Do you see now, Elias? The universe is full of uncertainty, But those who act with courage and wisdom can shape its course. You have done more than protect my city today. You have proven that humanity can rise to challenges even when the odds are against them." Elias bowed once again, his heart heavy with the responsibility, but lightened by the knowledge that they had succeeded. "I only acted with what I believed was right, Your Majesty. That is all any of us can do." Saren smiled, her eyes bright with determination. "And that is why the choice now is yours, not to take or to refuse, but to act with understanding and respect. The future of many depends on the wisdom of your answer." The city of Zephyria, once under threat, now glowed peacefully beneath the alien stars. The energy flows hummed gently, a reminder of the balance and life that had been protected. Elias realized that heroism was not measured by victories alone, but by the courage to act with integrity, the willingness to understand others, and the determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. As night fell, the Empress, Saren, and Elias stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. The gas giant beneath reflected the lights of Zephyria like a mirror of stars. Elias understood that the choice he would make was no longer theoretical. It was real, and it carried consequences that would ripple across civilizations. Saren's hand brushed lightly against his arm. "Whatever your answer, know that today you have shown the heart of a true ally. That is something that will never be forgotten." Elias met her gaze, seeing both the intelligence and the courage in her eyes. "I understand, Saren, and I promise that my choice will come from understanding, respect, and the hope of doing what is right for all." The Empress's tears glistened in the starlight, a mixture of relief, pride, and cautious hope. She had seen courage, wisdom, and integrity displayed in her palace today, and she knew that the answer to her question would not be given lightly, but would be considered with the weight of responsibility and honor. And so, under the alien sky of Zephyria, with the city safe and the stars above witnessing the promise of trust and courage, Elias realized that the journey was far from over. The events of the day had tested his character, his judgment, and his courage. He had faced danger, understood responsibility, and forged a bond that transcended species and civilizations. The question remained, hanging like a delicate flame in the hearts of all three of them. But Elias now understood its meaning more deeply than ever before. The answer would not be simple, but it would be guided by courage, respect, and the desire to act for the good of many. And in that moment, as the city hummed gently beneath them, he knew that the universe had shown him what it truly meant to be a hero, not through conquest or victory alone, but through the wisdom to act rightly, even when the stakes were higher than life itself. The morning light spread across Zephyria like a gentle wave of gold and violet. The city had recovered from the attack, its energy flows restored and gardens floating serenely as if nothing had happened. Yet, for Commander Elias Cade, there was no peace. The Empress's question remained in his mind, unshakable, and the events of the previous day had only made the weight of it heavier. He walked through the palace corridors, now calm and quiet, observing the city that had tested him so thoroughly. Every corner of Zephyria seemed alive, humming with energy and life. He thought of the battle, of the courage displayed by Princess Saren, and of the quiet but profound trust the Empress had placed in him. The Empress had requested a private audience. Elias entered her chamber, finding her seated gracefully near a window overlooking the gas giant. Her eyes, always striking, shimmered with unspoken emotion. Princess Saren stood beside her, calm yet radiant, as if the weight of the city had strengthened her rather than burdened her. "Commander Cade," the Empress began, her voice steady, "the time has come for an answer. The question I asked you before, the one that carries consequences for my daughter, my empire, and perhaps your people, must now be met with clarity. Elias bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I have considered it deeply. I understand the weight of this decision, not just for you or for Princess Siren, but for the future of our civilizations. I am ready to speak my answer, guided by what I believe is right and honorable. The Empress's eyes filled with a glimmer of tears, the same as the first time she asked the question, but now with a faint hope shining through. Then speak, Elias. Speak with honesty and wisdom, for both are needed in the choice you make. He turned his gaze to Princess Siren. She met his eyes calmly, silently acknowledging the events they had endured together, the siege, the cooperation, and the understanding they had forged. He realized then that this decision was not about possession or political gain. It was about respect, autonomy, and the courage to act rightly. Your Majesty, he began, I cannot answer your question in a way that ignores Princess Siren's own will. She is intelligent, capable, and strong. Any decision regarding her cannot be mine alone to make. I can promise, however, that I will respect her choices, protect her if she requires it, and act with honor to maintain peace and understanding between our peoples. The Empress studied him, her eyes searching for sincerity. Elias felt the weight of centuries of history in her gaze, the wisdom of a civilization that had survived countless challenges and had learned the importance of careful decisions. Princess Siren took a step forward. Commander Cade, your answer respects not only me, but the principles my mother values most. You understand that trust, courage, and honor are stronger than any alliance formed by obligation. That is why your answer matters. Elias nodded. I am ready to act, not out of desire or duty alone, but out of understanding and respect for what is right. I cannot claim you, Siren. I can only stand by you as an ally and friend, supporting the choices you make for yourself and your people. For a moment, silence filled the chamber, broken only by the gentle hum of the city beyond the windows. The Empress exhaled slowly, tears spilling freely now, not of sorrow but of relief. She reached out, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. You have answered with wisdom, Elias, she said softly. You have understood that true courage is not in taking, but in respecting the autonomy and strength of others. Your actions, your decisions, and your character have shown me that humanity has the potential for greatness, just as my daughter has shown me that the future is guided by those who act with integrity. Princess Siren smiled, a mixture of relief and quiet pride. Then you understand, Elias, that our bond is not one of ownership or obligation. It is one of trust, mutual respect, and the willingness to act for the good of many. That is far stronger than any alliance formed by politics alone. Elias felt a profound sense of clarity. The choice had never been about possession or status. It had been about understanding responsibility, about protecting the innocent, about the courage to act rightly even when the consequences were uncertain. By recognizing Siren's autonomy and pledging to act honorably, he had answered the true meaning of the Empress's question. The Empress nodded, her eyes shining with pride and hope. You have shown that humanity can rise to challenges, that courage and wisdom are not limited to the strongest or the oldest civilizations. Your answer is honorable, and it has earned not only my respect, but the trust of my people. Elias glanced at Princess Siren again. She had grown even more radiant in the aftermath of the siege, her confidence strengthened by the trials they had faced together. He understood now that the true measure of heroism was not simply in battles fought, but in the decisions made with integrity, courage, and respect. I will continue to work alongside your people, Princess, he said quietly, to ensure peace, to protect those who need it, and to build a future where humanity and the Xylarians can thrive together. That is my commitment. Siren's smile widened, warm and sincere. Then I am glad we have met, Elias. You understand what many cannot, that trust and respect are the foundations of real strength. Together we can face whatever comes next, not as ruler and subject, but as allies, as friends, and as equals in courage and understanding. The Empress's tears flowed freely now, and she extended her hands to both Elias and Saren. The future is not guaranteed, but today you have shown that honor, wisdom, and courage can shape it. Let this moment be remembered, not for the question I asked, but for the understanding that has come from it. The galaxy watches, and so too does history. Elias felt a sense of relief and fulfillment unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had faced uncertainty, danger, and the weight of immense responsibility. He had acted with integrity and respect, and in doing so had demonstrated humanity's capacity for greatness. Outside, Zephyria shimmered in the alien sunlight, its floating gardens and towers reflecting a balance of beauty, power, and life. The city had endured a threat and emerged stronger, a symbol of hope and resilience. Elias realized that the trials of the past days had not only tested his courage, but had also shown him what it meant to be truly heroic. Today, Saren said softly, we have proven that strength is not in domination, but in understanding. That is a lesson for all of us, no matter where we come from. Your choices, Elias, have shown what humanity can be when it acts with wisdom and courage. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle into his mind and heart. I have learned much from you, Saren, and I will carry these lessons forward, not just for myself, but for the people I represent, and the future we will build together. The Empress stepped back, her gaze encompassing both of them. Then the question has been answered, not with mere words, but with action, understanding, and respect. Today, humanity has earned not only my trust, but the chance to walk alongside us as equals. This is the beginning of a new chapter, one guided by courage, wisdom, and the recognition that every choice matters. Elias took a deep breath, gazing at the city beneath him, the floating gardens, the glowing towers, and the vibrant life of Zephyria. He understood now that heroism was not measured by conquest or power, but by the ability to act rightly when the stakes are highest, by protecting what is precious, and by honoring the autonomy and strength of others. Princess Saren joined him at the balcony, her hand brushing lightly against his. We will face challenges, she said quietly, but together, with respect and understanding, there is nothing we cannot overcome. Remember this, Elias. True courage is in the choices you make when the universe watches, and you have chosen well. The Empress stood behind them, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. May the stars witness this moment, and may the legacy of our actions guide the future. Today, humanity has proven itself worthy of trust, honor, and the chance to shape the galaxy with wisdom. As the sun rose higher over Zephyria, bathing the city in warm light, Elias felt a profound sense of purpose. He had faced trials, navigated the complexities of alien politics, and acted with honor in the face of danger. He had demonstrated humanity's capacity for courage, integrity, and wisdom, and he knew that the bonds forged here would endure across time and space. The Empress's question had been answered, not by a simple yes or no, but by action, understanding, and respect. Elias understood that this was the essence of heroism, not in power or conquest, but in the courage to act rightly, in the willingness to protect, and in the commitment to honor the autonomy and strength of others. Princess Saren looked at him, her eyes shining with trust and hope. The future is ours to shape, she said softly, and I am glad we face it together, as allies, as equals, and as those who understand what true responsibility means. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of the universe on his shoulders, tempered by the knowledge that courage, honor, and wisdom were stronger than any threat. The journey was far from over, but the foundation had been laid, and humanity had shown its true potential. The city of Zephyria glowed beneath the alien sky, a symbol of resilience, balance, and life. And as Elias stood there, looking at the vibrant world before him, he realized that the true measure of heroism was not in battles fought or victories won, but in the choices made with courage, respect, and the understanding that every action matters. For the first time in his life, Elias Cade felt that humanity, fragile and young as it was, could rise to meet the stars, not through domination, but through honor, wisdom, and the courage to do what is right. And so, beneath the glowing skies of Zephyria, with the Empress watching proudly and Princess Saren standing confidently beside him, Elias Cade stepped into the future, ready to honor his promise, protect what mattered, and build a legacy of trust, courage, and heroism that would be remembered across the stars.